First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add a few inputs to help explain how the UI works. And down here in the lower left is the Add Input button. And since everything in vMix is an input, this is kind of an important button. That brings up the Input Select dialog. And first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to load a camera. So I'm going to select a webcam from my camera list, and that automatically pops it into Program and Preview. And I'm going to add an image so that I have something different in Program and Preview. So now I have my webcam in Program, and I have my image in Preview, and I can explain how these transitions work. So between the Program and Preview windows is the transition options. So we can use this to cut, fade, wipe, um, and how we select the duration of these is set in the drop-down. So if I click the drop-down, it lets me change the different transitions, and it lets me change the duration. Currently, it's set to half a second. 1,000 milliseconds is 1 second, so 1,000 will make it a 1 second transition. Also here are some DSK buttons. Those let me turn on whatever the last DSK was. And then is the T-bar, and it might be strange seeing the T-bar sideways, but the idea behind it is seeing it's taking whatever's in preview and dragging it over to program. So we can slowly drag it over or drag it over really quick. Below the program and preview are the inputs. So on the left here are the video inputs with their different controls, which varies from input to input. On the right are the audio inputs. Below that are a number of important controls. The Add Input button, and I'll just go over those briefly. You have cameras, images, video clips, audio inputs like microphones. Titles are here, virtual sets, web browser, vMix call. I'll go over all of that in a minute. Next to that is the record configuration. So you click this little gear and a dialog pops up, which lets you select from your different codecs, different containers. And from those containers, you can select the different codecs that your system is capable of doing. So from AVI, we have everything from Blackmagic, Magic YUV, MJPEG, Grass Valley HQX. WMV is just going to be WMV. MP4 files, is just MP4. FFmpeg, there's a number of options in here which are kind of important. The codec, you can select between MPEG-2, several varieties of MP4, ProRes, and VC3, as well as all of their settings. And to turn record on and off is this button here. It says start or stop recording. Next to that is the external configuration. What external does is it lets you communicate the output of vMix to programs like Skype and Zoom. When you have the external button turned on, that lets you output vMix. It almost appears like a webcam from the drop-down list, and you can select the output of vMix, which is great for doing live presentations. Next to that is the streaming configuration. When we click this, there's a number of different settings here that let you choose your destination. You can configure vMix to work with Facebook in a number of different ways. You can also do a custom RTMP server, which lets you enter in just the URL and stream name. You can start it, view your status, and save and close that configuration. Another important thing is that vMix is capable of streaming to 3 different destinations simultaneously at 3 different stream qualities, which is a very powerful function. Next to streaming is the multi-quarter, and certain versions of vMix have it and certain versions don't. Multi-quarter allows you to record up to 4 different cameras or NDI sources directly to your hard drive individually, and you can record those in a number of different containers and codecs. Next to that is playlist. This is great for setting up vMix to drive a facility's screens. You can have it rotate through different inputs. It's a very handy feature for people that are running houses of worship. And then to the right of that is the overlay settings. These are the subject of their own tutorial. Overlays are ways of putting graphics or doing picture-in-pictures. You can control whether they're transitions, whether they're picture-in-pictures, how fast they go, their positioning, whether they have a border, etc. Next to that is the data hamburger. This is how you manipulate data sources. So if you want to bring in an Excel spreadsheet and have that driving the graphics for a title, that's how you would configure that. And last is the statistics, how vMix is running, as well as there's a little button down here that lets you take a snapshot of program out, and this button lets you lock recording, whether it's on or off. And then just to return to the top of the screen, presets, you can save the current preset if I wanted to have just these two inputs as my starting point for doing training on vMix, that I would save this. I can also hit last, which opens up the last configuration. So when I open vMix, I can just hit last and begin where I started, left off. You can select open. From the drop down, you can open up any of your previous projects, and you can do new, which lets you create a new project from scratch at any of a number of different resolutions. Also, the undo button, if you close an input, you didn't mean to, you can reopen it. And then perhaps most importantly, the second most important after add input is the vMix settings. This is where you can tell what GPU you're using, how to configure your web controller, what your shortcuts are, how your recording format is recorded, how your what outputs are set up to be configured for NDI, etc. There's a lot of important ones in there, and we'll go over that in detail in a future tutorial. So with that, let's take a little bit of a deeper look into inputs.